Hello guys, welcome back, and today I'm going to be talking about a trade involving Brendon, Montour, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Buffalo Sabres. Now we have a big trade between the Anaheim Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres, so what are the trade details of this trade and which team won this trade? Watch till the end to find out. Now this is a big trade involving Brendon, Montour and Brendon, Guhle, and it's honestly a pretty interesting trade between the Anaheim Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres, and one that I think could go either way when it comes to which team will win, but honestly it's a pretty interesting one to dissect, especially when it comes to the conditions of the trade. Now, when it comes to the trade details, we're first going to start with what Buffalo gets, and they get Brendon Montour, a very steady defenseman from the Anaheim Ducks, a pretty young one at that. And for the Anaheim Ducks, they get Brendon Guhle, a pretty solid prospect in the Buffalo Sabres system, and a 2019 conditional first-round pick. Now, the conditions of that 2019 first-round pick are kind of wacky. Now, Buffalo has 3 first-round picks right now, technically, until this Brendon Montour trade. They had 3 first-round picks, Buffalo's, St. Louis's, and San Jose's. And with St. Louis and San Jose's pick, they're both involved in this trade technically, but only one of them will be actually used. Now, when it comes to the conditions, the Ducks receive San Jose Sharks' first-round pick, or they have the option to select St. Louis's pick if it's between the 20th spot and the 31st spot. Let's just say, for example reasons, that San Jose wins the Stanley Cup. Then their pick would be the 31st pick, Anaheim would have it. But then if St. Louis finishes 22nd in the draft, they lose in round 1, then Anaheim has the decision and they have the choice to pick that higher up pick, which at that point, of course, they will. So they have the decision and they have the options there. If San Jose picks lower, then they would do that. Whatever it might be, Anaheim gets the decision there and they get the choice to make on draft day. Now, when looking at that 2019 conditional pick, it'll likely be in the 20s somewhere, unless San Jose or St. Louis either miss the playoffs or they either win the Stanley Cup. It's seeming like they'll be in the 20s, so it's not really an early pick for Anaheim anyways. It's mostly that later first-round pick that other teams are getting for those kind of rental players. Now, going back to Brendon Montour, the guy that the Buffalo Sabres get, obviously, he is a pretty solid defenseman. Now, he is 24 years old with the Anaheim Ducks. He hasn't had the greatest season, but he definitely has serious potential, and he has a pretty good contract, I would say, and could be one of the future guys on that Buffalo Sabres blue line. And when it comes to his stats this season, he's played 62 games, he's gotten 5 goals, 20 assists for 25 points, and for an Anaheim Ducks team that has been starving for offense pretty much that entire season, those are pretty great stats, especially for a defenseman. Now, defensively, he's not all too great. I mean, he could be better, and again, some of that comes with how youngful he is. But for the Buffalo Sabres, they have an obvious lack of defense, and Brendon Montour will fit obviously and well into that top 2. But Montour was one of the guys that Anaheim has been rumored to trade for quite a while. When it comes to their defensive core, they got Cam Fowler, they had Lindholm, of course they did have Montour, but now when it comes to that whole defense core, a lot of those guys were looking to get traded, and a lot of those guys have been swirling around trade rumors with Toronto, with other teams that needed defensemen, but Buffalo ended up scooping up Brendon Montour while he was still available, and Anaheim, I think, was looking to trade any of those defensemen, some of those, at least one of those guys. Brendon Montour was a guy that was almost always consistent in the NHL trade rumors, and he was a guy that for some reason Anaheim always wanted to trade, but the Buffalo Sabres do get him, and he'll likely be a pretty decent fit in that defense. Now, when it comes to the prospect going back to the Anaheim Ducks, Brendon Guhle is a very fantastic defensive prospect. Now, so far with the Rochester Americans in the AHL, he has played 50 games, getting 5 goals, 22 assists for 27 points, and that's pretty great numbers for a forward, but a defenseman, and for how young he is certainly impressive. Guhle being only 21 years old, he can maybe factor into the Anaheim Ducks group and defensive core this season. That's how good he is, and I feel like he'll get a definite shot in the Anaheim defense. And while Anaheim defense is already pretty great with some of those guys like Cam Fowler, like Lindholm, a guy like Guhle could definitely fit in there well and could get a lot of mentorship from the team in general. But I've been a big fan of Brendon Guhle ever since he was drafted back in 2015. I've always liked his upside, I've always liked his potential, and he's starting to find consistency in the AHL, which is a really good thing. But now going to the Anaheim Ducks, he should find some NHL time this season. I feel like with the Anaheim Ducks, he will get a shot there. The Anaheim Ducks defense, when it comes to the depth there, is not really too great. They've traded a couple of guys. It has moved quite a lot, and I feel like a guy like Brendon Guhle could really fit in, especially in the second half of the season for the Anaheim Ducks, where they are rebuilding. retooling. They are retooling for next year, but he is still a young guy that is already good enough to make the NHL and play good with them. But I think this trade is really fascinating because the Buffalo Sabres made this trade. I didn't expect them to go after a guy like Brendon Montour to really help that defense. I thought this trade would have happened with Toronto or Tampa or some other contending team that maybe needs a little bit of a defensive punch. But a team like Buffalo is something that I didn't expect. And it really paints a picture on what they're going to do this trade deadline because they aren't out of the playoffs right now, but Brendon Montour can help that defense. And if they are going to be buyers at this deadline, that can make for a very interesting one because they got a lot of prospects and a lot of picks. But it definitely is a very risky decision for Buffalo Sabres to make right now. Again, they are never secured in the playoff spot. They're definitely not right now. And trading a guy like Brendon Montour for one of those picks, while both of those St. Louis and San Jose will likely make the playoffs, that is a pretty big risk. And for me personally, if I was Buffalo Sabres GM, I would have stayed cool. I wouldn't have done too much to that group. I feel like keeping those prospects and keeping those picks would be great for the now, almost, and the future as well. But getting a guy like Brendon Montour, he is young, he is still 24, and he'll definitely fix a need that they have in defense, and I feel like that's what Buffalo kind of needs right now. And while he's not the best defenseman out there, he is a pretty solid one, and a good one going forward. But of course, this is the part of the video where I determine a winner of this trade, the Anaheim Ducks or the Buffalo Sabres. And for me personally, I'm going to have to go with the Anaheim Ducks on this one. I think it is close, but I feel like the Anaheim Ducks got pretty well off here. While Brendon Montour is pretty young, I'm a big fan of Brendon Guhle, and who knows what that first round pick can become and how high it might be. Again, it might be a 20 pick. Who knows if St. Louis even makes the playoffs right now. So I feel like Anaheim, they just barely won, but I do think they won. And while Brendon Montour will fix a lot of things on Buffalo, I'm not sure if he's the complete answer there, at least long term. But again, we've heard Montour being in the rumors for quite a while with the Anaheim Ducks, and it's about time that it happened. I kind of expected it to happen more in the offseason rather than the trade deadline, but the Buffalo Sabres went ahead and made the big move and the big splash, so you gotta commend them for that. But I feel like the Anaheim Ducks also get off pretty well here. Again, getting that 2019 first round pick is pretty huge for them, and getting a definite amazing defensive prospect in Brendon Guhle is a big win for them. So I like how the Anaheim Ducks are trending. They can maybe make the playoffs next year if they continue to get younger, to get even more skilled, and while Brendon Montour is certainly young, a guy like Brendon Montour has serious upside right now. The Buffalo Sabres being buyers around this trade deadline is something that I certainly did not expect, and the Anaheim Ducks selling off some of their guys for picks and prospects is no surprise whatsoever. So the Anaheim Ducks make a trade that is pretty expected, but the Buffalo Sabres pretty much the opposite. But of course, with this video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So let me know, what do you think about this trade between the Anaheim Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres? What do you think about the players going involved? Brendon Montour to Buffalo, Brendon Guhle, and a pick to Anaheim. And of course, let me know, which team do you think won this trade? Do you think the Anaheim Ducks won or the Buffalo Sabres? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this card right here to watch my video about the Dzingel trade and him going to the Columbus Blue Jackets. But that is going for it, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on this trade and which team won. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.